The Sunday Scaries are not anxiety. Anxiety is what the wellness industry sells you so it can move units of meditation app subscriptions and lavender sleep sprays. What you feel at 6:47 p.m. on a Sunday when the light changes and your stomach drops and the weekend collapses into a thin film over the dread underneath is older than that, sharper. It is your nervous system performing a final stage moral rejection of the thing you are about to walk back into. Today, the dread has a specific flavor because the corporate internet has decided this Sunday is Good Deeds Day, and your LinkedIn feed is stuffed with executives posing next to sandwich trays at shelters, and your Monday calendar contains a meeting where those same executives will sign off on another round of layoffs. The virtue on Sunday is the down payment. The cruelty on Monday reads as out of character only because the sandwiches bought them that reading. This is toxic altruism. They bank the public goodness on the weekend, so the private damage on the weekday looks like an exception. Your body knows the trade. Your body is not malfunctioning. It is keeping the receipts. It remembers every meeting where you watched someone get processed. It remembers every email you sent that was a small lie. It remembers the version of you that walked in 3 years ago and the version that walks in tomorrow, and it is grieving the difference. Moral injury is not burnout. Burnout is what happens when you are tired. Moral injury is what happens when you are complicit. The clinical literature traces it to combat veterans who were ordered to do things or who failed to stop things that violated the deepest layer of their own sense of who they were. It is a soul wound built on shame. And shame is not the same animal as guilt. Guilt says, I did a bad thing. Shame says, I am a bad thing. Burnout heals with a vacation. Moral injury follows you to the beach, sits next to you on the lounger, waits until you check your inbox at 2 p.m. because you cannot stand the silence of being unsupervised by the thing that hurt you. The condition is worse now than it has ever been because the exit door has been welded shut from the outside. The labor economists are calling it job hugging, the learned clutching of a job you actively hate because the alternative feels worse. The machine that made the alternative feel worse is called FOBO, the fear of becoming obsolete, and it has been installed in you on purpose. Every tech headline about AI capability is a small hammer. Every friend laid off 9 months ago and still searching is a cautionary tale your nervous system already memorized. So you stay. You stay in the job that is injuring you and you hug it tighter the more it hurts. Because the market outside has been framed as a cliff and the cliff has been framed as certain death. Job hugging is not loyalty. It is hostage psychology with a 401k. The organization knows it. The organization is pricing its behavior accordingly. Every abuse gets slightly more expensive to resist when the cost of leaving has been inflated into oblivion. Let me name the 8 weapons, because the first defense against an injury is being able to name what cut you. The first is the AI workslop mandate. It is now the largest productivity drain in corporate life, and no internal dashboard will ever report it because the dashboards were built by the people benefiting from the lie. The numbers that leaked out of the productivity research firms this year confirmed what every knowledge worker already felt in their hands. People now spend more time rubber stamping generated garbage than actually thinking. Your company handed you some flavor of generative tool and pushed the goalpost from quality to volume. The deck for Tuesday was spat out in 9 seconds and you spent 40 minutes pretending to refine it. The client report has a paragraph you did not write and cannot fully verify, and your name is on it. The injury is not the tool. The injury is the identity collapse. You trained for a decade to become an expert, and the machine has demoted you into an editor for an algorithm that does not respect your expertise. The craftsperson who cared about the comma and the sentence and the argument is gone. In her place, a quality checkpoint on an assembly line of plausible sludge. Every time you press send on something you would not have written, a small piece of the reason you entered this field falls off, and nothing grows back. The second is institutional betrayal, and its field operative, DARVO. Deny, attack, reverse victim, and offender. This is the default response of any organization whose image costs more than the human in front of it. You report something, a pattern of harassment, a safety violation, a budget irregularity. First move, denial. Second move, an attack on your credibility, usually dressed up as a performance review or a sudden interest in your timesheet. Third move, the inversion. The organization becomes the wronged party. You become the disruptive element creating instability. HR is not your friend in this sequence. HR is the immune system of the institution, and you have just been flagged as a foreign body. You went to the system designed to address bad things, and the system ate you instead. The third is pet to threat, the most predictable arc in modern corporate life, and the one that breaks the most ambitious people. You were recruited with theatrical enthusiasm. You were the future. They put you on the flagship project. They quoted you in the all hands. Then you actually delivered, and somewhere around month 9, the temperature in the room dropped. Meetings you used to run now happen without you. Your manager starts forwarding small criticisms from anonymous sources, and here is the part most people miss. The injury does not arrive through the leader. The injury gets distributed across the org chart through what the clinical literature on narcissistic systems calls the flying monkey network. The hostile leader does not deliver the demotion. The hostile leader recruits a ring of peers and enablers who volunteer to do the dirty work. The offhand comments in meetings, the exclusion from the email thread, the sudden coldness at the coffee machine, the helpful feedback that is actually a knife between the ribs. The leader stays smiling and publicly supportive and technically uninvolved. When you finally complain, the paper trail shows a well-meaning executive surrounded by independent colleagues who happen to share concerns. The flying monkeys preserve the architect's deniability. The damage is inflicted by the people you thought were your friends. That second betrayal, the lateral one, is the part that does the deepest tissue damage. The fourth is weaponized incompetence in leadership. Your boss cannot use the project management software. Your boss cannot run a meeting without you in the room prepping every talking point. Your boss cannot write the email, cannot approve the PTO request without escalating, cannot remember what you discussed last week despite 4 follow-ups. None of this is real. It is a posture, learned over years, designed to dump management labor onto the people being managed while keeping the title and the salary. You are doing shadow management. You are coordinating across 3 teams, mediating 2 interpersonal conflicts, writing the strategy doc your boss will present next month, and you are doing all of it for the original wage of an individual contributor. The injury is not the extra work. The injury is watching your competence get monetized by someone who will never name what you are actually doing, because naming it would mean paying for it. The fifth is performance punishment, the reliability tax. Studies on workload distribution across the last 2 years keep confirming the same number. The most competent person on a team absorbs roughly 40% more work than the median for the same compensation with marginal recognition. This is not a bug in management. It is the operating principle. The reliable employee is a load-bearing wall, and load-bearing walls are not celebrated, they are loaded. Every reorg, every departure, every botched hire results in another pile of responsibilities landing on your desk, because you are the one who will not let it fall on the floor. You are paying for your own competence with your evenings, your weekends, your relationships, your sleep architecture, your lower back. This is life theft. The theft is gradual enough and morally legible enough that you participate in it. You take the extra project because someone has to, and the someone is always you. And somewhere in year 4, you realize you have been sponsoring the company with the unpaid donation of your own life. The sixth is the workplace family trauma bond. The language of family is deployed at work for exactly one reason: to disable the boundary-setting machinery adults normally use to protect themselves in transactional relationships. You do not negotiate with family. You do not bill family for overtime. You do not leave family for a competing family with better dental. Once the framing lands, the dynamic that follows is structurally identical to a high-conflict household. The inconsistent reinforcement, the praise that floods your dopamine on Monday, the criticism that spikes your cortisol on Wednesday, the silent treatment from leadership on Thursday, the celebratory team lunch on Friday. Your nervous system learns to chase the next hit of approval the way a child of an unstable parent learns to read the front door for mood. By the time you notice the pattern, your body chemistry is already organized around the institution, and leaving feels less like a career change and more like a divorce. The seventh is productivity theater. Your team chat calls it the mouse shuffle. The activity tracker flags you as idle after 4 minutes, so you install the jiggler, or you keep a document open and tab over to wiggle the cursor every few minutes, or you schedule meaningless calendar holds to fake motion. You are lying to a machine for 10 or more hours a week. The lie is small and the lie is constant, and small constant lies are how integrity erodes. You did not become a person who cheats. You were placed in a system that requires a low-grade fraud as the price of admission. The moral injury is not in the lie itself. The moral injury is in the downgrading of your own self-concept, the recognition that you are now someone who games a surveillance regime to protect a paycheck from a job you cannot afford to lose because the great desperation is waiting outside the door. The eighth is AI washing. The cleanest example of executive cowardice the corporate world has produced in a decade. Your colleagues are being laid off. The press release says the reductions reflect efficiencies enabled by artificial intelligence. The internal memo uses the same language. Everyone on your team knows the truth. The layoffs were planned 18 months ago to juice the next earnings call, and the AI narrative was chosen because it sounds inevitable instead of chosen. You are the witness. You watched a friend pack a box on Wednesday. You sat through a Thursday town hall where leadership praised the new lean operating model. You said nothing because saying something puts you on the next list. The injury is the witnessing without testimony. You know what happened, you know why, you know who profited, and you are required, as a condition of continued employment, to participate in the official forgetting. These 8 do not work in isolation. They compound. The compounded form has a clinical signature, and I want to name it because naming it is the first move out of it. The signature is the death spiral of guilt, shame, and disgust. Guilt arrives first. Guilt is almost manageable because guilt is about an action, and actions can be corrected. Shame is the second floor, harder. Shame is no longer about what you did. Shame is about what you have become inside the institution. Disgust is the basement. Disgust is when your body begins to physically reject the environment, the smell of the office, the sound of your manager's voice on a video call, the taste of the coffee in the break room. Disgust is the pre-verbal layer of the nervous system declaring the relationship over while the rational mind continues to send the calendar invites. Most people do not leave at the disgust stage. Job hugging has made leaving structurally unaffordable. Instead, they enter Resenteeism, which is the dominant emotional posture of the 2026 workforce, and which should not be confused with quiet quitting. Quiet quitting was private. Quiet quitting was the discreet withdrawal of discretionary effort behind a surface of compliance. Resenteeism is loud. Resenteeism is the deliberate performance of your own dissatisfaction made painfully obvious to everyone in the room. The sighs in the stand-up, the camera off in the all hands, the Slack responses that are technically professional and radiating contempt. Resenteeism splits along 2 paths that braid together in the same person on the same day. The first is martyrdom, the slow public performance of your own destruction as evidence against the institution. Staying late so people see you stay late. The unwell employee who carries a moral charge you mistake for power. The second is mutiny, the internal withdrawal of all discretionary effort while the outward performance of compliance continues. Both are responses to a real injury. Neither heals it. The healing arc, if there is one, does not begin with a resignation. It begins with a method, and the method that is held up across the last few years of clinical and organizational research is the C.O.D.E framework: courage, obligations, danger, expression. Courage is the willingness to name what happened to you in private, to yourself in language that is accurate rather than loyal. Obligations is the audit of what you actually owe and to whom, separating the contractual duties from the manufactured guilt the institution installed in you. Danger is the honest mapping of the real risks of action and inaction, which usually reveals that the perceived risk of speaking has been inflated and the real risk of staying silent has been buried. Expression is the controlled release of the truth, a private letter you never send, a conversation with a therapist who specializes in occupational trauma, a documented complaint, a careful conversation with 3 trusted peers. Expression is not catharsis. Expression is the metabolization of an experience that has been sitting undigested in your nervous system for months or years. Alongside the internal work, there is the operational layer, and the operational layer runs on the P.A.C.T system: paper trail, alliances, contingencies, timing. The paper trail is your insurance policy, the documented record of every assignment, every directive, every conversation that matters, stored somewhere outside the company's servers. Alliances are the relationships you build laterally and externally. The colleagues at other companies, the recruiter who answers your messages, the mentor who is not in your reporting chain. Contingencies are the emergency fund, the updated portfolio, the resume that does not need a panicked rewrite, the health insurance bridge plan you already researched. Timing is the recognition that the right moment to act is rarely the moment of maximum emotion, and that strategic patience is not the same as tolerating abuse. P.A.C.T is the scaffolding that lets C.O.D.E exist without getting you fired before you are ready. Inside the daily texture of the office, there are 2 tactics that have migrated from the domestic abuse literature into the workplace literature, which is itself an indictment, and they are gray rocking and yellow rocking. Gray rocking is becoming as uninteresting as a stone in the presence of a hostile party. One-word answers, no weekend plans shared, no reaction to provocation. You give the predator nothing to feed on. Gray rocking is the right tool when you have identified a specific person or dynamic as actively harmful, and you need to reduce surface area while you execute the longer plan. Yellow rocking is the softer variant, more sustainable for daily use. You stay pleasant and minimally cooperative without ever giving the system access to your interior life. You smile in the meeting. You contribute the required information. You do not volunteer your opinions, your ambitions, your vulnerabilities, your weekend, your fears, your father's health. Yellow rocking is what most healthy people in unhealthy workplaces have already started doing without a name for it. Naming it lets you do it on purpose instead of apologetically. The closing thought is the one the institution does not want you to arrive at, which is the distinction between your personal identity and your corporate self. And this distinction is no longer metaphorical. The corporate self is now a literal bundle of digital tokens. Your single sign-on credentials, your badge data, your keystroke cadence, your meeting transcripts, your Slack sentiment scores, your AI tool usage logs, your location pings. The modern institution does not just employ you, it instruments you. Your behavior is measured and sold back to itself as a productivity narrative. The identity-driven threat of this year is not that the company is watching your work. The identity-driven threat is that the company has built a shadow version of you out of your own data. And that shadow version is the one getting reviewed in the calibration meetings you are not invited to. Reclaiming your personal identity means understanding there is a version of you that does not live inside the SSO, a version that existed before the offer letter and will exist after the exit interview, a version with values that predate your manager, a body that knows when something is wrong, relationships that do not require a quarterly review. The injury you are carrying is the injury of letting the instrumented costume grow into the skin. You were told for years that you were a cog in a machine, and the framing was almost reassuring, because cogs do not have moral standing, and cogs cannot be injured, only replaced. The framing was a lie. You are not the cog. You are the thing the machine was built to extract from. Your attention is the product. Your competence is the product. Your data exhaust is the product. Your willingness to absorb the load and stay silent about the cost is the product. The institution does not run on coal anymore. It runs on the slow combustion of human conscience, and your conscience has been burning for a long time, and the smoke you have been smelling on Sunday evenings is your own. Healing does not mean quitting tomorrow. Job hugging has made that calculation more complicated than the wellness industry will admit. Healing means understanding what was done to you with enough precision that you stop blaming yourself for the symptoms. It means rebuilding the boundary between the costume and the skin. It means executing P.A.C.T. on the outside while running C.O.D.E. on the inside, so that when the moment comes, whether it is next month or next year, you leave on your own terms with your nervous system intact and your record clean. It means refusing to let the final theft, which is the theft of your own capacity to feel that something was wrong, complete itself. The last thing worth saying is this: the fact that you are still capable of moral injury is proof they did not finish the job. The numb people stopped feeling the Sunday Scaries years ago. You still feel them. That feeling is not a defect. That feeling is the part of you that did not sign the contract, the part that watched everything that happened and kept the receipts, the part that is now ready, finally, to begin the long, quiet work of taking yourself back.